What is up, my music producers and sound engineers? I am Zach with Polyverse Music. Today, we're going to be going over how you can take one vocal and turn it into an entire choir using our plugin, Manipulator. Let's get right to it. Our Manipulator plugin drastically affects the pitch and timbre of your audio. The perfect plugin to create a vocoder style effect, which you can repitch into new harmonies. So for this tutorial's example, I'm actually using my own vocal on a song I'm currently working on. Now this is just a basic vocal with a basic sine wave chord progression behind it.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face with all the stars and all the people.
Alright, now I'm going to add the effect so you can really hear this difference.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face with all the stars and all the people.
Pretty fun. Now let me show you how we did that. So what we have here in the green is our main vocal. Now our main vocal is going to have no manipulator effects applied to it. Instead, what I did is duplicate this vocal about 4 times because our notes on this sine wave, as you can see on the MIDI here, were about 4 notes, sometimes 5, but 4 notes for the most part, which makes up the entire chord. And what we're going to want to do is separate the bass, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th notes into their own categories. There's a group right here titled MIDI that has a bass, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I separated the MIDI chord progression that we have into its bass notes here, 2nd note of the chord here, into the 3rd note of the chords here, and into the 4th note of the chord right here. These MIDIs are sending to the corresponding bass note, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in this choir group that we have. Now without Manipulator though, these would sound like nothing. You have to put Manipulator on each of these tracks and send the MIDI signal to each of these tracks. So if you look over here, I have the MIDI signal for bass sending to the bass vocal of this choir. Same with the 2nd, same with the 3rd, and same with the 4th. All that is doing is sending this MIDI information individually to each of these tracks. Then, when you have Manipulator on these tracks, it is going to follow the MIDI and force the notes of the vocal to stay there. So let's listen to this bass note and see what we are kind of working with when it's just bouncing along this bass MIDI. I have this formant knob down about 3 semitones to make it sound a little lower and like a different person is singing. It also makes the pitch sound a little smoother. But as I'm playing it, I'm going to mess around with this formant knob so that you can hear the difference in what's happening.
Take me back to that to your face.
When you go super high on the format, it sounds very robotic. When you go low, it almost is inaudible. You can't even really hear what's happening, but it's just lowering the format, not the fundamental of the pitch. Now we're also utilizing the stereo and the detune. I'm going to play that bass note one more time. I'm going to mess around with the stereo and this detune and see if you can hear the effect that's happening.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face with all the stars and all the people.
When I was bringing up this detune, you can really hear it get off key when it gets pretty far up there. And when I was bringing up the stereo, you can kind of hear the separation in the left and right ears to make it sound more stereo in your mix. Now to hear that stereo effect a little better, I created a separate MIDI track called chord, which is technically just the basic sine wave chord that we have up here. Also, I duplicated another vocal track and sent the MIDI chords to this track so that we can hear all the voices together. So I'm going to play that back now and mess around with the stereo effect and maybe a little bit of the detune so you can get another idea.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face with all the stars and all the people.
Now you could totally hear the difference when all the vocals are together in the choir and you pump this stereo. Makes it sound way more wide in the left and right ears. Now let's listen to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. This is the 2nd.
Take me back to that place.
The third.
Take me back to that place.
And the fourth.
Take me back to that place.
Now all of them together sound like a choir.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face.
Additionally, to the stereo and detune on each of these tracks, we have Manipulator also using this glide function. Now this glide function is going to sway up to the next note on the MIDI scale. I'm going to turn up the glide function on all of our Manipulator tracks going on right now, all the way to about 75%, so you can really hear what this sway is doing.
Take me back to your face with all the stars and all the people.
It creates a really interesting effect when you have it quite long like that at about 75%. You can really hear them sway. Now on each one of these, you'll notice I have a slightly different format and different stereo and detune variations. The reason for that being we want each, the bass note, second, third, and fourth, to all sound different of each other and to sound like as if someone else is singing them. I additionally have them panned in different directions on the actual dot itself. This is to create a even more realistic and stereo effect as if there's a true choir being sung. Now something I like to do when I'm trying to create a choir with Manipulator, while listening to the choir by itself, mess around with the stereo and detune effects individually so that you can hear how it is affecting individual notes by themselves. Same with the format. In the lower notes like bass, you're going to want a lower format, and with the higher notes, technically you could use a higher format. For this example in particular, I didn't, because the higher formats did start to sound a little too robotic for my liking, given the chords that we were using. But in most cases, the higher pitch notes you want to go for, a higher format actually might sound more natural and more realistic. So I'm going to play it one more time, and I'm going to mess around with the fourth and the third formats, and I'm going to bring them up as we're playing and see if you can hear that difference on the fourth note and the third note.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face with all the stars and all the people.
You see that robotic sound I was talking about. It doesn't sound bad, it's just not what I was going for in this tutorial specifically. So the last thing I want to go over in this tutorial is how we're getting this smooth reverb on not only the main vocal, but also the choir. For the main vocal, I am sending 100% to a return track. Now that return track has Comet on it. Comet is one of our reverb plugins. Now all I did is I went to our presets, clicked medium, and went to lovely vocal. I clicked that lovely vocal and turned it 100% to wet. And that's what this sounds like.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face.
That's going to give your vocal that reverb, life, and space that you're hearing. Now, additionally, I took this Comet reverb, copied it, and pasted it onto our choir group. Now, we didn't want this reverb at 100%, and we also didn't want the same size. We didn't want it as big as we have on the return track, because that would overpower the choir as a whole, and we wouldn't be able to really hear the definition in the choir. So I brought the size of the reverb down to about 8.33, which it was originally, I think, around 40, and I brought the dry and wet down to about 40%. This is going to make the choir smoother and fit more in the background of your mix, not overpowering your vocal. Let's give that a listen with the reverb at 100% on the choir.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face.
Now that is offering a much more wooden type of sound, almost as if there's this blanket over the choir. And that's going to make it sit behind the vocal, especially when you don't have it at 100%. Now the vocals together without the sine wave sound like this, with the reverbs smoothly mixed together.
Take me back to that place. Take me back to your face with all the stars and all the people.
I am Zach with Polyverse Music, and this was a tutorial showing you how you can take one vocal and turn it into an entire vocoded choir using our plugins Manipulator, also our plugin comment. If you found this tutorial at all useful, please like and subscribe. Also, visit us at polyversemusic.com for more tips and tricks. Thanks for watching.